Hey everybody, Chris, Hannah, Mike Wolf with Life 180 Turnkey Real Estate. And we've got a question for you, Mike.
Sounds good.
There's this buzz about lease options. First of all, what are lease options? And second of all, how many years and what do you use and what do you recommend and how does it work and why?
Wow, that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of questions.
But here's the good news, I can answer all those for you.
I thought you could.
So a lease option is synonymous with rent to own. It's the exact same
Rent
thing.
to own.
Yes,
Okay.
so how that works is basically on our turnkey properties, we do what's called a 3-year lease option. And what that means is when your tenant moves into the property, they're signing 2 contracts. The first one is a rental agreement for X amount of dollars. The second one is an option for them to purchase your property, usually at 50% more than what you paid for it. So what that means, so think back to when the recession first kicked in. Think about how many people went from being a homeowner to a tenant.
Right.
And think of how many of those tenants do not want to be tenants anymore. They want to get back into homeownership. So our program creates a really great win-win for our investors. It creates a win for the tenants. Because a lot of these tenants, they've gone from place to place to place. The homes get sold out from under them. They're relocating their kids to different school. They want some stability. And imagine you give them the option to, instead of having to move every 6 months, every year, you're saying, hey, you can stay put and you're gonna have the first option to buy this home. We can't sell it out from under you as long as you purchase it within those first 3 years. So here's a really big plus. So now you know the plus to the tenant. It's huge, especially if they've, like I said, a lot of people get shuffled around. Because a lot of people after the recession, their homes were not worth enough that they could sell it, so they just had to hold on to them. They became reluctant landlords, and as soon as they had an opportunity to sell it, they sold the home. So we know the advantage to the tenant, but the advantage to the investor is huge because the biggest challenge with owning revenue properties is vacancy. And imagine that you sign a 6-month lease or a 1-year lease. Every time a tenant moves out, you're basically, at the very least, you're cleaning. Quite often you're repainting, you're changing carpets.
Right.
Who knows what you're doing? Who knows how the people are leaving the properties?
Yeah.
Now, if you have somebody moving into your property and they're planning on buying it, they're going to treat it a lot differently than if they're a professional tenant.
Right.
They're going to treat it like it's their own home, and they're going to take much better care of it. The turnover is a lot less. They're going to stay put longer. And it means that you're going to get a much higher return on investment. If you know that you've got a tenant going in there for 3 years, if they decide to purchase it and it's marked up 50% to them, that's obviously a huge profit to you. A good win to them though also, because nobody else is giving them a chance to get back into home ownership. So the other thing you need to know is that they're putting a deposit and it's non-refundable. So unlike a tenant where they give you a damage deposit, if they move out, they get that money back. When you're doing a lease option, that money is going towards the purchase. So we know that they're serious about wanting to purchase it. And they know, we're very transparent about it, that if they don't purchase the home, they don't get that money back. And so it gets applied towards the purchase only. It's not refundable. So if they change their mind a year in and want to move, they can. They're not going to get that money back. And we're going to put another, what we call tenant buyer in there. They're going to give you another deposit, which you get to keep. And we start all over again. And so it's very advantageous, not just for the tenant, it's advantageous for you as well.
Okay, so let me ask you this, not to put you on the spot too much here, but when you talk about a 50% markup from what you pay for it in 3 years, that sounds like, I don't know, a bit too good to be true from my perspective.
Sounds huge.
That's a huge return in a 3-year period.
It is.
Plus you're getting rent during that time.
Right, of course.
Do you have it so a certain percentage of the rent goes towards the purchase price? Do you have it, how do you make all that work?
Okay, so for our viewers at home, if you're doing this in an expensive place where the homes are really high priced, like if you're in California or you're in New York or Vancouver, if you're somewhere where homes are really high priced, chances are you're going to have to help your tenants save a down payment. When you're in Atlanta, these homes start around $70,000, go up from there, but there's not really a huge down payment that these people have to save up. Over 3 years, they should be able to do that on their own. So all the rent is strictly rent. None of it goes towards the purchase price. And yes, it does sound too good to be true that it's going to get marked up 50%. But the reason we do that is it leaves you as investors in the driver's seat, meaning that, let's say you bought a home, I'm just going to make up numbers here. You bought a home for $100,000. Your tenant has an option to buy it for $150,000 after 3 years. Let's say after 3 years it's only worth $130,000. It's not worth $150,000. And of course the home's not going to appraise. Well, what I mean by you're in the driver's seat is you can say, oh, well, no problem, we'll lower it to $130,000. And if you're happy with that profit, absolutely. You're creating a win-win. You're leaving something on the table for the tenant. great, good for you.
Nice.
But you're not obligated to. If you decide, hey, you know what? Well, we'll wait for the market to
hold
catch
out.
up.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be a renter for another 2 years till it's worth 150 or 3 years, and you can do that. So you have different options available to you. The other thing is, not all tenants, even though they go in there maybe with the intention that they want to buy it, not all of them are going to qualify after 3 years. And we tell them that right from the outset. We let them know we're not dishonest or trying to pull the wool over their eyes. We say, if no bank is willing to lend to you in 3 years and you don't have 150,000 cash, you're not going to be able to purchase it. But what we typically do is, quite often when that happens, we'll give them the opportunity for another 3 years. So imagine, and by the way, the rent is going up 5% per year. So every year they're in there, the rent is going up. And after 3 years, if their option is 150, maybe we make it 170. We give them another 3 years, but we make it 170 or 180. And so once again, we're always concerned about helping our investors get the best return possible. Not taking advantage of the tenants, but you can always lower it, but you can't put it up. So we don't want to. I don't want to leave money on the table for my investors. And there's been markets that I've been in, including right here in Phoenix, where it went up more than 50% in 8 months. It went up 50% in 8 months. And I was invested here. And so if I would have done that to my tenants, or sorry, to my investors, they might not have been very happy with me if they're selling a home way below market value. So I'd rather err on the side of caution. And we can reel it back if people qualify for 130 and that's what it's worth. That's an option, but it gives you control.
And if we know anything about how we've seen you do business over the last half a decade, you do what's in the best interest of everyone involved.
Exactly. We want it to be a win for everyone.
It has to be a win for everyone, because then you get repeat, both tenants as well as investors, and because you have and that's built in.
That's a key to longevity in this business, because you're only as good as your last deal. You're only as good as your reputation. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And my reputation is very important to me. So I want.
That's amazing.
I want my teams to be happy. I want my investors to be happy. I want my tenants to be happy, and I want to be happy. And if everybody's happy, then we just keep doing business together over and over and over again.
And I think viewers are thinking, probably like I am, of the individual instances in their lives, maybe when they were younger, when they have been taken advantage of as a tenant or even as a landlord. And so there's that visceral pain, and to know that you're getting into a situation where people on both sides are being treated fairly, like, God bless you. It's amazing.
And it kind of surprised me when you first told me this, that this was part of your strategy, right? But now that I understand it, it makes a lot of sense. But also what makes you and your system unique is you're, I think, from what I've seen, and I've done a lot of research, the only turnkey system that actually implements this for their clients.
I've never seen it anywhere else. And the other really big advantage to our investors is that when you do a program that's 3 years long for your tenant and you want them to buy it, you can't make the home what's called rent ready. Rent ready means that the home is clean. It means it's safe. But for an investor, when you go to sell that on the open market to somebody else, you're probably going to have to upgrade the countertops, the cabinets.
It's not pretty.
You might be putting another 20.
It's functional, but it's not pretty all the time.
And so if it looks like a rental property, we're never going to get somebody to agree to want to buy it in 3 years. So it's got to look. Can't be rent ready. It's got to be what we call flip ready, meaning it's something that you and I would move into. And so it's got to be upgraded. So
and
there's
that
a
the
lot
ladies
more.
really like too.
The kitchen's got to be nice. The bathrooms have to be nice. But actually, I'll tell you what we do. Obviously, we want it to be really nice. When people pull up, it's got to have good curb appeal. And as they walk through the home, it can't look like it's somebody else's mess. It's got to look like this thing is brand new. And we even go to the extreme of we epoxy the garage floors, because they walk through, they pull up, it looks great. They walk through the home, looks really nice, and then they get to the garage and there's oil stains on the floor. And all of a sudden, it doesn't have that new feeling anymore, right? It's just like if you go and buy a new car and it's all dirty, you're not going to buy that new car. It doesn't feel new.
It's
true.
And you can't picture your car in that garage unless it's got that gorgeous epoxy
Exactly. And so just little tips and tricks that, the viewers, if you're ever trying to do this on your own, which I don't recommend, but if you try to do it on your own, these are tips that you can use. Or if you already own some rental properties, do that before you go rent it out again. And it'll make you a lot more money. It'll make your tenants a lot happier. They'll stay longer and keep your vacancy rates lower.
Nice. And if you do see this anywhere else out there, know that you saw it here first.
There you go.
Because you created this model, and the man behind the curtain spoke first. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for the insights, Mike. Life 180, Turnkey Real Estate. And thank you for subscribing. I'll tell you in advance for that little subscribe button with the bell so that you get notified by all of the upcoming content. And we look forward to seeing you again.